How do you attract and keep the best financial advisors at your firm? On this episode of the Resilient Advisor Show, we're diving deep into the secret sauce that can make or break your wealth management firm. I'll be joined by Darci Smith, the owner of Roklyn Consulting, who's cracked the code on building thriving teams through culture. And we're going to talk about her new book, Beyond the Broker. If you're ready to learn why culture isn't just a buzzword, but it can really be a game changer for your business, you don't want to miss this episode of the Resilient Advisor Show.
This is the Resilient Advisor Show with Jay Coulter.
Welcome to the Resilient Advisor Show, the podcast solving the advisor's dilemma. How do you simplify your business, streamline investments, and build a profitable practice that's built to last? Joining me for this episode is Darci Smith from Roklyn Consulting. Darci, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I was very excited to see that intro. The music got me going.
I've been told that music is dated and I need to change it. My team's actually looking into it, but it's catchy. We've used it for a couple of years now.
It got me. I was into it.
Somebody once told me it sounds like you're entering one of those MLM conferences where they try and get you fired up to go sell some multi-level marketing nonsense. So
it's worked, right? So
Darci, let's get started with your background. Can you share a little bit about your journey from being a captain of your soccer team in college to where you are today?
Oh, we're bringing it back to soccer. Yes, I do think the athlete thing really plays a part in my story. My entire life, all I wanted to do was play soccer. And like my parents, me, everything was just like narrow focused on getting a scholarship to play Division I soccer. And so being able to do that was just like such an accomplishment. And now it's kind of like, what's next? What's next? So that led me on that track. After soccer, I graduated from school, went and got my MBA because like most people didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life yet. And it was the best decision. The connections I made there are really what put me in my position today. My first contract actually as a wealth management recruiter was with someone I went to business school with. So just shows like those connections and how important they are. After graduating from the MBA, I ended up going the route of, getting a corporate job, climbing the ladder and doing that thing. And I kind of just knew it wasn't for me. And so after that, I got into recruiting, worked for a company called Athletes to Careers, have such great things to say about them. They help former professional and collegiate athletes get jobs after sports. So obviously very relatable to my world. And about 5 years ago, I decided to go on my own and start my own firm. And I wanted a very specific niche. I loved working in wealth management. I had experience working with a few RAAs, and that's really what led to Roklyn. And here we are today. And I just feel like every year I learn so much more than the year before. I'm just obsessed with the industry and helping more people get educated about the pathways and growth and ways that you can thrive in a firm.
One of the key drivers of success that I found at wealth management firms in the hiring process is, especially for business development roles, hiring former athletes, particularly college athletes, because the discipline it takes to make it through college and be an athlete. Have you found that to be the case in your recruiting experience?
100%. I mean, I think I'm biased because I was an athlete myself, but it's one of those things where, I went to school to be a soccer player, and then I just realized how important that education piece was as well. And luckily, I kept my grades up and did that. But not only that, I also wanted to be independent. So I worked at IHOP at 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. just to get some extra cash. And I kept that from my parents because I didn't want them to know that I was, not sleeping. But literally those types of things are what shaped my story and what made me memorable in the interview process. And it's how I help, guide people into these jobs in wealth management. And I'm like, talk about those obstacles you had to overcome, especially if you were an athlete, right? The teamwork environment, having to overcome like your coach yelling at you, right? The resiliency of that. So I definitely think it's a huge piece. And I will say a lot of my clients are like, do you still have that athlete network? Because we would like to hire some.
Awesome. Let's talk about your new book, Beyond the Broker. You have a bunch of co-authors with it. Tell us a little bit about the book, the genesis of it, and what readers could get from it.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking about it. So, Cameo Roberson, an incredible connector in the industry. She's a fractional COO, and her and I do a lot of business together within the wealth management space. She was the like kind of impetus for getting this book together. She had heard over and over from her clients just kind of the struggles and tribulations of potentially, going out on your own and what you would need and that support around you. So she gathered up 13 women, and all of us have different specialties in the wealth management space. So each of us really focus on a chapter, whether it's marketing, compliance, culture, that's my chapter, and pushing towards like that. I just have questions. I want to know what else is out there. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go independent, but there's a lot of things in this book that just from a practice, your own practice, you can get a lot from it. So super grateful to be a part of it and just excited to get it into more hands.
Well, let's talk about your chapter. It's on culture. Why did you choose to focus on this topic, and what makes it so critical for wealth management firms today?
Man, we could talk about this for hours. So I'm going to keep it as succinct as possible. I think the word culture has gotten a big hype. And every time I ask someone, can you define your culture? It's the same answer. And that answer is, you might even know this answer. The answer is, we have a no asshole policy. Sorry, can I curse on this? And I'm like, okay, let's get a little bit more. I mean, if the bar of your firm is to not let in assholes, I think that we have a problem, right? Like if the bar is a negative connotation, then let's talk about where the positives are. What do you want to focus on? Like, what do you find is important in your culture? Do you have an open door policy? What do you wear? What does the office look like? Is it hybrid? Are you throwing pizza parties for incentives? Or are you throwing someone money for an incentive, right? Those things shape your culture. And I think this is my mission. I really think it's to help people define, not just saying we have a great company culture, but explaining what that is and why it's great.
Darci, how would you even start that process? Like, let's go through a hypothetical example. You come across an RIA that's serving 10, 15 advisors, and they haven't really put the thought into what culture should be there at the organization. How do you get started?
Yeah. I mean, it's a top-down approach. So I believe that the culture comes from the founder or comes from the top down. I think how you're showing up to your clients, to your employees is where it starts. And so in the book, I actually have like a step-by-step process of these questions that I ask my clients. And it ranges, but just to kind of give you an example, it's, what does the first 30 days look like for a person that's onboarding? Are you asking them questions about how they actually like to be rewarded or praised? Some people hate when you send out that email to the entire firm that says, Jay did a great job. It's like, please don't. Like, I can't, And some people really enjoy just kind of that simple pat on the back. Some people want the big pizza party, right? But how would you know this if you're not asking and understanding what each person wants? And then the next step is, when we're talking about people stepping into their office, right? I get asked this when candidates are going to interview. What's the culture of the firm? If I haven't set up a specific, this is what our office looks like, this is how we're dressing, this is how we're greeting clients, this is the expectation of being hybrid or not being hybrid, right? All of these things are kind of the little wheels that turn to create this culture that you then have to live by. It's not just this tagline of we have a great culture, but it's we embody it every single day by saying that we have an in-person, type of culture. But the owner's actually here too. The advisors are actually here too. We're not just making that the service team shows up every day, but you'll never see us. The advisors, we're out, So everyone is aligned with that culture.
And then how do you memorialize it? What are your thoughts on best practices there?
I think, man, this one's tough. I think in terms of like, let's talk about the website, right? Or how you're showing up on social media or how the company's being portrayed. I am on this journey and mission to change the way of the culture of the video that we present. You look at a wealth management firm, you look at their website, you look at the furniture in their office, you look at the video, it's all the same type of video, right? What are the things that are actually grabbing and engaging people to get excited about your culture? What are you showing them if you're traveling with your team, if you're doing things in the community? Are we taking photos of that? Are we showing that? And I think it goes beyond just the people in the firm, but actually, and I talk about this too, is like, you want the experience of someone that's excited to apply to a job or maybe get excited to work there and actually have a good experience, even if they don't end up working there. Does that make sense? Like,
Yes, definitely.
yeah. So it's like they go and tell other people, hey, I didn't get this job at this firm, but the experience through the interview process and what they actually showed on their website matched what they were talking about when I went in there for the interview. Because many people, they know they have a value or a mission on their website, but can they actually tell you what those are and actually embody them? That's the difference.
Okay, so I'm going off my scripted questions now. Let's walk through this. How do we teach a firm how to do that then, and
Mhm.
get it embedded inside their organization?
Right. I mean, I think it's check-ins with yourself. I mean, the same way that you hold KPIs for your metrics of actually driving in revenue, what are you doing for your KPIs to hold yourself accountable to act in the way that you show up and you want to for your culture? Like, I don't know many advisors that have told me, yeah, actually every Friday we sit down and kind of talk to our team and ask them like, hey, are you getting what you need? And, remember what we talked about when you were onboarding, new hires and things like that? Like, what could we help you with? To give like something really tangible, I think something that has really, really changed the game for some of my clients, they've actually hired an outside consultant or person, whatever you want to call them, but they're the ones checking in with the actual new hires, with the new advisors, and asking them like what they need. Because now you have this third party, right? That they feel more comfortable kind of maybe venting to or talking through things with. Sometimes that's all you need, right? It's just to get it off your chest and to vent. It doesn't need to be this, I need to go to my boss and, get upset, but I need someone to kind of talk to. They can then say, hey, here's how let's package that. Let's talk. Let's figure out how both sides can make this work. And that is where that culture is actually happening, is because you're using outside resources, the company showing that they're investing in their employees because they're paying for this outside resource to understand those people's feelings and thoughts within the firm. And I've truly seen that as a game changer.
So you clearly have a passion for culture.
Yeah.
When did you realize that you wanted to be an expert in this space and you had this deep passion?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that, because I think it's very important on my journey, because when I was leaving my last recruiting firm and starting my own, I knew I just had to get clients. Like, I wasn't going to make a lot of money. I think I made $20,000 in my first year, right? Like, it was hard. And in doing that, I recognized other places where I could add value. So simultaneously, I started a TikTok and an Instagram called Career Coach Darci, where I talked about everything I knew about interviewing, about resume writing, literally anything you can think of from a job search perspective, and how to quantify and look at your job search. In that, I started career coaching. I started getting inbound, questions. Hey, can you help me with my resume? Can you help me with this? And over the course of those years, I heard so many complaints, so many things from people who want to enter into a certain type of culture. And it always came back to that. And whether they use the word culture or not, they were describing cultures of firms that they wish they could be at. And I just wish that I could walk into my boss's office and be honest with them. Or if I'm looking for a new job, I want the type of boss that's supporting me and like, look, maybe you have hit the ceiling at our firm. We want you to go on and we want to help you do that, right? So all of these things that I learned from doing that career coaching and being on a face online, which is interesting, I'm getting these direct messages, these online, everyone's asking me like, hey, how can I better my culture? HR directors have reached out to me and said, hey, I really want to like embody what you've been talking about. Like, can we get on a call? And I think that's where it's like, I'm starting to realize this is a real problem that we're talking about, but people are not embodying, right?
Interesting. What are your thoughts on TikTok today for professional use?
Yeah. I'm biased because I have a TikTok and it's done incredibly well for me and has really changed my life, to be honest. I think video is so powerful when people can feel you through the screen. I mean, even just right now, what we're doing versus having just the podcast, right? It's a different type of medium. I don't think it's for everybody. I think, it takes practice to get comfortable in front of the camera. However, TikTok in general, I think it's viewed as you're going to dance and you're going to be weird and, it's for the younger generation. I don't believe that. I have talked to attorneys who have been on TikTok and have gotten almost 60% of their business coming through TikTok inquiries. I have talked to tons of professionals. A few of my financial advisors, they didn't want to admit it, but they're like, actually, your TikTok came across and they're like, I have a TikTok because my kids have it. I'm like, don't lie, you have one because you like it. But truthfully, a few of my clients have actually came from Instagram and TikTok because they found me, or their friends or their wives, they've sent me their, each other their videos. I'm all for it. I think whatever way to get your expertise across that feels natural and good for you, like, use that medium, right?
Yeah, we've been experimenting with it. We tried it a couple years ago and then put it on the shelf because the avatar, the folks that were interested in the coaching business would not necessarily, well, they just weren't on TikTok.
Mhm.
But what we found playing with it here in the past, call it 3 or 4 months, is that a lot of people who view the Resilient Advisor show or listen to it, they're on TikTok. So then I started messing around with it, and that algorithm is so good. So I'm a huge Tennessee football fan and an Atlanta Braves fan, and
Yeah.
like it knew exactly what to do. It figured it out quickly, and they just started putting that stuff in front of me, even though I'm just posting, clips from the show. And so it just occurred to me that there's probably a lot more opportunity there than most people realize. What do you think financial advisors should do as it relates to TikTok if they want to get started?
Right. I think, yeah, and I want to play devil's advocate there when you say, they're not on TikTok. Everyone's on TikTok. Like, whether they want to admit it or not, they're there. And when they're there, the right things are being fed to them. If they've mentioned once to someone that they've like been looking at coaching, if they Googled it, it's going to show up on their For You page, right? So I do
Okay.
think it's a really powerful tool for that reason. As far as advisors go, I think it's really, really tough with compliance. I mean, any type of marketing, you run into that compliance issue. But like any other platform, just because it's TikTok doesn't mean you have to dance. It doesn't mean you have to be a different type of person because of the platform you're on. Be who you are, whether that's super professional. If you want to show up in a suit because that's your vibe, that's what you like, do it on TikTok. You're going to attract the people you want to attract, right?
Mm.
If you look at my TikToks, it's all me facing the camera. I'm talking, I'm educating, and it's not, doing a bunch of dances. I have done some in the past, so don't scroll too far down. But but yeah, it's how you want to show up no matter what the medium is. I think TikTok, I think it just has a bad, rap because it's a younger generation thing, but in 10, 20 years, it's not going to be, right? Facebook used to be that. And now look at Facebook, right? So I think wherever you feel comfortable, and if you're cross promoting, if you're doing one video and it just takes 5 more seconds to hit the button to press it onto Instagram and TikTok, why not try it?
And that's why we started doing it. And I got to tell you, I felt my age when you made the comment that you wanted to press me on whether the folks that follow Resilient Advisor would be there, because 10 years ago, I would sit in front of advisors and they would tell me that their clients weren't on Facebook. And my challenge to them was to call their top 5 clients and ask them if somebody in their house was on Facebook. And, 90% of the time they were. So maybe we'll pay a little bit more attention to it here on the show.
That's so smart. Yeah.
Last year, I had an opportunity to interview Sean Sparks from Triad Partners. He and his partner, Brad Johnson, have built an incredible community over there at Triad. He came on and he was talking about culture in this interview. And one of the things that struck me is the results that they get in that organization because of the way they drive community to drive culture. What are your thoughts on how an RIA firm could go and really start leveraging community inside of their firm to drive results?
Yeah. I mean, the word community it means a lot. I think it's it's what we were born to do. Like, being a part of a community, doing things for a community, helping your community, right? All of these things. So building from a community aspect, 100%. I think that is, to me, that's the bar. That's where you should be heading towards. That's the goal. I think the changes that I've seen, especially in RAAs, I do think they have a little bit more flexibility to kind of try things out, right? And they encourage their employees to get out in their community, to post on LinkedIn, to post on Instagram. They encourage like everyone to build together and have that, right? So I 100%, I agree. I think anyone that's listening and thinking about culture, it starts with the community of the people inside the business, right? I think I heard this from Morton Wealth, Stacy, their COO. She said, most of us in the financial space, right? We always say, let's put the client first. That's what we always say. She doesn't agree. She's like, we got to put our people first. They're the ones serving the clients. So it's our people first in the organization. And then we go out and do a good job for our clients.
Yep. I love that framework.
Mhm.
Let's go back to your book. So when you think about the number one takeaway, in your opinion, from your chapter on culture, What should readers pay attention to and take away for something actionable they can do inside their organization?
I think anytime you're making a change or trying to do something, it's one step first. It's not taking my book and going through every single step, implementing everything, and trying to just completely change the way you do things. I think it's pick something that resonates to you. I ask very insightful questions. I give examples on how to answer those questions. So when you're going through it, you can say, oh, that resonates with me. I'm going to maybe implement that, right? And it's one step at a time. Something I even have, like it's just free on my website, is you can download it. I use it for my clients. It's an onboarding questionnaire. So when you're onboarding a new advisor, a new client, very simple. They just fill out this like 1 to 2 page PDF that says, how do you like to, like I was talking about, right? Like, how do you like to be awarded? What are some things how would you like to be checked in with, right? Do you want a one-on-one meeting, right? It's all of these questions that help them feel like they're actually getting what they need. And then from there, now you have to check yourself that you're implementing it, right? So setting up, like, even if it's just 30 minutes on your calendar once a week to check in and say, okay, remember when I read that book, I made that decision to check that box. Am I doing that, right? Have I moved forward in doing that? And each week you can then tackle the next one. But it's like anything else, when you're trying to make that change, it's just one step at a time.
Yep. Well, please, what is your website so people could go download that checklist?
Yeah, roklyn.com, ROKLYN.com. And
excellent. We'll have that in the show notes. And how could viewers and listeners pick up a copy of your new book, Beyond the Broker?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. Just type in Beyond the Broker. Very easy. I always want to be able to say, you can find it anywhere books are sold, right? That's like what people say. I don't know if that's the case, but I wanted to just say that out loud. So
yeah, so I've been interviewing authors for a long time, and the way this has evolved, that question or answer to that question has evolved is amazing. And 9 out of 10 times now, we'll go to Amazon.
Yeah.
Does anybody do anything else?
Yeah, exactly. Very easy. Type it in, it'll be right there.
Darci, let's pivot and talk a little bit about recruiting in the time we have left.
Cool.
So when you look at the financial services industry today, and you think about the biggest challenges you see as it relates to national RIAs trying to recruit advisors to their firm, what are the biggest challenges and how do they get addressed?
Man, that's a really good question. I think when we're talking about recruiting, what are you doing to attract them? Are you making partnerships with recruiters? Are you putting out contracts with every single recruiter that you know? Right. So I'm going to take it from my perspective, because that's the only way I know how. But when I'm working with firms that are looking to attract advisors, the first thing they say to me is, hey, here's our contract. They just of course, they want to work with recruiters. They want to find advisors. No question. And I kind of push back and I say, well, I actually want to get to know you, understand, like, how am I going to pitch this firm? Am I talking about your management style? Am I talking about your technology? Like, what are the things that you are doing that you want to attract advisors? And like anything, the same way that you want to attract clients, typically we talk about having some type of niche, having a specialty, having something that sets you apart. And again, this kind of goes back to every firm kind of saying the same things. We have this certain rule, like we only hire good people, we do this. And I just push, I get deeper and deeper. I'm like, no, let's get to the point of what does make you different. And I get so excited when I get to take an advisor who is seeing this paycheck, right? Maybe it's a huge percentage up front, all these things. And they end up choosing a very different firm for all of these reasons that we're talking about, that changes their life for not only just money, but for the mental and work-life balance and all the things that advisors really do care about, because we lead with the deal, right? Like, from a recruiting perspective, it's first question, okay, what's the recruiting deal? How much am I getting up front? How, you know what I mean? And then it's like, most advisors, when you really dig deep, that's not what they care about. Of course, money's important. Like, let's not, of course. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, what's more important is how they're showing up each and every day to this firm. Are they happy when they go home to their family? Are they complaining, or are they in a great mood, right? And so I think in terms of recruitment and actually being able to build partnerships with recruiters, there should be more of an effort to create a place where you can actually pitch what we're talking about versus just the deal.
Interesting. So let's put a bow on that for any national RIA watching this clip right here. what is the best way to approach a good financial advisor or a good financial advisor recruiter to
Mhm.
start engaging with them and working together?
Yeah. I think start with I'm like if I'm the RAA and I'm talking to a recruiter, my first thing is I would like a partner. I would like to partner with someone that's going to help embody what we care about in order to attract the right advisors to our firm. And that's the most important piece. And then live by it. Because again, we can go back to people saying they care about culture and saying they care about these things, but we've all seen it where they hire the a-hole advisor that just has a huge book of business, and that just starts to like eat at that culture of the firm, and then it just starts to spread. So depending on what you're really trying to build, ask yourself that first. If the goal is just to build as much assets as you can and get to this big number, then I'm probably not the recruiter for you. Then you maybe are just looking for the recruiter that can bring the most assets to your business, right? And that's fine. Figure out what your model is. I always love the saying, like, start from the end and then work backwards. Figure out what that is, and then start to make those relationships with the recruiters, relationships with your team. If everyone's embodying that, you should be getting advisors from your own team, from your advisors that are embodying that. And they're like, hey, I want to work there. I want what that person has. They look really happy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Darci, final question. It's been a while since we've had a really deep recession. It's been a while since we've really experienced market pain for an extended period of time. In fact, I think we have to go back to 2008 if we're realistic. So a decade and a half. What do you think is going to happen for advisor movement, advisor transitions when we experience another real recession and bear market?
Yeah. I think there's always going to be advisor transitions. I think people are going to start to really look at what makes them happy. And if for me, I wasn't in the industry when that happened, right? So I'm coming at this from all of the books that I've read, all of the podcasts that I've listened to. There was still movement, and that's what I've learned. So I don't want to speak on things that I wasn't a part of because I wasn't, in 2008, I wasn't doing this business. I think that's important to note. But I truthfully think that there's always going to be advisor movement. And so you need to be, as the RIA or as the firm, as the manager, top of mind when these advisors are really questioning like what is important to them. Because in those downturns, in those feelings of, when we went through COVID and things like that, people started to get really introspective and think about like, is this what I want for the rest of my life, for my clients, for my business, for my success? So I 100% think there's still going to be movement.
Yeah. Darci, I agree. I actually think it's going to accelerate when advisors start to care more about making sure they take care of their clients and not
Mhm.
just themselves. So I really appreciate you coming on. Viewers, listeners, make sure you grab a copy of her new book, Beyond the Broker, available on Amazon, and links to everything we talked about are in the show notes. Darci, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.